What's going on, guys? Unknown Player here, and today we're going to be rounding up and discussing a bunch of Destiny 2 news and information, some pretty interesting things that have popped up recently. And once again, this video is not going to contain any spoilers or leaks. I'll always say if there is, but this is a regular news video based on public information and my thoughts on them. So let's begin with a new exotic I spotted, going through some of the EDZ footage that came from the press the other week. Now, these are actually, for the first time, hunter exotics, which we never get to see too often. Hunter stuff is always really rare in this footage, but now we can see these gauntlets the hunter is wearing. Now, throughout the various clips, you can see sometimes they look normal, kind of regular, but still very cool looking. And then other times they're illuminated, and all the lines all over the arms are lit up in the typical exotic fashion. You can tell the perk is going to be pretty situational, so whatever you have to do to actually activate the exotic perk, you can see it makes the lines on the arms all light up and glow. And the design of these kind of remind me of the Warlock transversive steps from Destiny 1, so maybe it's a similar perk, but the lines are all illuminated in a similar fashion. So I also want to talk about Trials and its difficulty tiers based on two bits of info we knew about previously, but now can be connected to see the full picture. So you probably remember last week when the Destiny 2 trophies came out, you can see the very last one was to encounter an emissary from beyond. And then a few days after that, we had the PC audio files, which confirmed the Trials the 9 game mode, and also the female character voicing the entire mode as you play. Now, connecting these two bits of info, we know that encountering this emissary, whatever that actually means, is how you actually complete or win at this new Trials to get the trophy, of course. Now, this trophy is for encountering the emissary, which is next to completing the raid and its hard or prestige mode. So clearly, encountering this emissary is just as challenging as the hard mode raid, but because it's a trophy, we know it's not going to be as difficult as going to the lighthouse in Destiny 1, because that wasn't a trophy before, and Bungie never had and never would make a trophy for something as difficult as going flawless. So the fact this trophy exists proves that meeting the emissary is nowhere near the same level as going flawless was. So my point by all this is that there's now going to be an easier and direct way to complete Trials, which isn't as difficult as flawless was. It's still obviously going to be very difficult, but it's not going to be like Destiny 1, where the only pretty much way to complete it was by going flawless. If you didn't, you kind of got a few loot drops, you got some decent loot, but it wasn't really the full thing as getting the lighthouse. But again, based on the fact this trophy exists, there's going to be a clear-cut way to actually complete Trials, instead of just knowing if you went flawless or not. Now, something Lars Barkin did say a while back was that they made some massive changes to Trials and how it works, so it does make sense, and it's also pretty believable that Bungie would want Trials to be a bit more accessible and not like just going flawless or go home with 1 or 2 loot drop situation. Now, this doesn't mean that that super difficult 1% challenge of a flawless or lighthouse is gone completely, so don't worry about that. All this means is that in Destiny 2, there's almost like a normal mode, which if you complete it, you go and meet the emissary. Again, what that means, we don't know. But then as well as that, you still have the really difficult 1% challenge, which will be equivalent to flawless. So just something interesting I thought of when I saw there was a trophy for Trials now, but what meeting this emissary does mean, we still have no idea. All we can do is speculate, but let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. So next up is some new info from Deej in an interview about something I've been asked myself dozens of times, but Deej confirmed if you are bringing over a character from Destiny 1 for those veteran awards, but you don't like their appearance and you delete the character to make a new one, hopefully one you don't regret this time around, the game is still going to recognize your veteran status and still give you the veteran awards even if you do delete that character. So veteran awards are completely account-based, not character-based. So it doesn't matter if you delete all of your characters, you're still going to get them if you play Destiny 1 and if you're on the same exact account on PlayStation or Xbox. Again, you can't swap between, you can't just go to Xbox and get your PlayStation awards, and PC is the same, but you will get them even if you do delete characters. Now, the downside to deleting characters is, of course, that you won't have that timestamp of when your character was made. I said in a recent video how in Destiny 2, there's going to be a little timestamp saying this guy was made in September 2014 or wherever you made it, which is pretty cool. But of course, deleting that is going to get rid of the timestamp. Now, honestly, I really wish you could simply edit existing characters. That would make so much more sense. I know a lot of people just want to do small things like remove the marking or change the eye color or hair color, but that is not how it's going to work. There is no character editing. You either keep the old one exactly as they are or make a new one. Either way, though, you're going to get the same veteran awards, which is really nice. Now, on the topic of those veteran awards, Bungie have still been very secretive about them. Luke Smith alluded to some really cool ones that apparently players are going to be very excited about, but of course he didn't want to spoil them. But in a few days, of course, when we get the game, we'll find out the extra stuff on top of those emblems we saw a while back. So next up, we got to see a bit of a closer look at the expansions and also Silver and Eververse through a promotional card. This image is from a Twitter user called Havoc83, so it's a little bit more specified in terms of the DLC number 1. You can see it no longer says just Winter 2017 as a release date, like it always said. It now says December, which is actually the same as what Kotaku said earlier this week. Now, also, the Cold Heart exotic does become available on the 5th of December, which is a Tuesday. So the current theory is that this expansion does launch on the 5th of December. Now, expansion number 2 is still very vague, it just says spring, so no exact month. And then in the text boxes it says both expansions will contain new story missions, co-op activities, competitive multiplayer, weapons, armor, and gear. So they're keeping it very vague for now. There was a supposed leak about the second Rasputin DLC on Reddit, but I'm not personally convinced. It seemed very nonsensical and made up. It also wasn't from a reliable source like Kotaku. It was a brand new Reddit account that then deleted itself. So I'm not going to bother talking about the details because it seemed very made up if you ask me. But some more info on the card talks about Eververse, and it confirms good old Tess survived the tower getting destroyed. She's back to sell you more microtransactions, which isn't surprising at all. But you can see the pricings for silver down at the bottom. But it also mentions weapon ornaments, which is interesting. We hadn't previously heard anything about if ornaments would make a return in Destiny 2, but now we know they are. To be honest, most of them did look really, really good in Destiny 1, so I'm looking forward to see how the exotics kind of completely transform with these skins. And I'm also wondering if ornaments will still only be on exotic guns, or maybe legendaries as well. Probably just exotics, but there you go. Ornaments are in Destiny 2, as well as gear from Eververse. So next up, I want to discuss probably one of the best bits of news to come out recently, and that's that in a way, Bungie didn't really get rid of Grimoire cards, but instead they do have the equivalent of Grimoire cards in the game, technically bigger and better. Now, this is because every single item, even blue weapons, legendaries, exotics, raid gear, even things like consumables, they're all going to have a page that opens up when you press a button, and it'll basically be like a Grimoire card that tells you story about the item. So you can pick up something and read a story about where the weapon came from, its backstory, some characters involved, and essentially flesh out the Destiny lore universe, which is actually really, really good, and I think better than Grimoire cards ever were. Now, the thing that I don't get is why Bungie didn't say this earlier, because it would have stopped a lot of the backlash about the removal of Grimoire initially. I remember seeing at the Destiny 2 reveal event the button for showing lore, but nothing happened because obviously the feature wasn't enabled in that build. But clearly back then they thought about it, so I'm not sure why they waited until now to announce this, because it would have helped a lot of people that were unhappy about the removal of Grimoire. But there you go, some very good news. Every item is going to pop out a lore tab. So there you have it, that has been a roundup of a bunch more news and info for Destiny 2. As always, if you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always much appreciated. Support on the videos recently has been awesome, so stay tuned, we've got a lot of Destiny 2 stuff to cover in just a few days. So if you aren't already subscribed, then make sure you do so with notifications turned on so you never miss an upload from me. If you want to watch another news video from me, then click the image on screen right now, and I'll see you guys in the next one.